I get messages like this one all the time from women who keep hearing that they need to do progressive overload, but it feels really complicated, really overwhelming, and it puts them off either getting started or getting stronger. They usually go on to ask me, do you really need to track every single weight? Do I really need to put the weights up every single session? And ultimately, how do I even know if I'm lifting the right weight? The fitness industry has a real talent for making simple concepts sound really intimidating and complicated, and progressive overload is probably one of the worst offenders. It leaves women second-guessing themselves and feeling too overwhelmed to start. You've probably heard that if your weight is too light, then you're missing out on all the benefits for muscle building and bone density, but likewise, if it's too heavy, you're going to risk injuring yourself or using bad technique. Now, during perimenopause, when your body is already going through enough hormonal fluctuations and changes overall, it's just another frustration that we don't need. But what if I told you that progressive overload is as simple as making our workouts a little bit harder over time? And finding the right weight for you doesn't mean a special complicated formula or a spreadsheet. Today, I'm going to demystify both those concepts so you have a clear answer and you can stop guessing and start making sure you are progressing and truly future-proofing your body as efficiently as possible. Hi, I'm Sally. I've been a coach for the last 15 years for women over 40, and I also went through early menopause myself and reversed the osteopenia that came with it. I did all of that using progressive overload in simple, straightforward strength training. So believe me, if you're feeling that this is really complicated and overwhelming, I know how you feel, but I'm walking proof that this can be done, and it is so much simpler than you think. So let's start by breaking down progressive overload into its simplest form. Progressive overload is just making your workout a bit more challenging over time. You don't need a spreadsheet, you don't need a formula, you definitely don't need to constantly push yourself to exhaustion. Think about it this way. When you were a toddler, you didn't go straight from lying in a cot to running around. You started off by crawling, then you did a step, then you did a couple of steps, then you were walking, then you were running eventually. That is progressive overload in its purest form. You gradually increase the challenge as your body adapted. Now, if you are in your 40s, hitting perimenopause, then that is the exact gradual progression that your body needs right now. It's going to guarantee that you can build strength, build muscle mass, and build your bone density too. Now, progressive overload doesn't just mean lifting a heavier weight. I teach the women that I coach that there are so many different ways to both track your progress and to make sure you're making progress. And you only need to use one of these methods at a time. So here's some examples. You could add 1 or 2 reps at the end of your set. You could add a kilo or 2 of weight to your weights. You could slow down your movement so that your muscles have more time under tension. So instead of moving the weight for 1 second down, 1 second up, maybe you move it for 3 seconds down and 1 second up. So playing with your tempo. You could take less rest time between your sets. Instead of a minute, drop it to 30 seconds or even 15 seconds. You could focus on improving your technique or your range of motion so that you get more out of every single rep. Doing the movements better, that counts as progression too. You could even add some isometric holds. So the hardest part of the movement, you just stay there for a second or 2 and then continue. It really can be as simple as any of these things. So as an example, I have a one-to-one client called Jane who works out at home. Now, she doesn't want to fill her spare room with dumbbells. She has a couple of pairs, a lighter pair and a heavier pair. She has no plans to buy anymore, and that's fine because we use all of these methods to make her workouts harder and make sure that she is progressing. So yeah, she probably could lift some heavier weights, but she has a previous disc problem in her back. She's a bit nervous about lifting heavier weights and making sure her form is right. So while we build her confidence, we use all these other methods to make sure that she is progressing. And yes, she will eventually move to heavier weights and she'll be able to get rid of the lighter ones altogether. But for now, I'm meeting her where she's at. We're doing what she is comfortable with. And her strength has massively increased just in the last 2-3 months without having to go out and buy heavier dumbbells or risk her technique or her form breaking down. Okay, let's tackle the other big question. So how do you know that you are lifting the right weight? So with the women that I work with, I work on what's called the Goldilocks Zone. So finding the weight that's not too light, that you're not going to be really getting any benefit from it, but also not too heavy, that you're going to risk breaking down your technique or even injuring yourself. We find the weight that is just right. And that Goldilocks zone matters so much when you are over 40 or even in perimenopause already, because if it's too light, you're not going to be building your bone density or increasing your muscle mass. But likewise, if it's too heavy and your body's already going through these hormonal changes and you're maybe feeling aches and pains in your joints, we don't want to risk anything. We don't want to risk an injury because that is the worst thing, because then you're going to have to stop training altogether. So we've got to find that Goldilocks zone, the perfect middle ground for sustainable strength and supporting your body in perimenopause and beyond. Here's a really straightforward guide for finding that weight that's just right. Your weight is too light if you could easily do 5 or more extra reps by the end of your set. If you can talk comfortably throughout the set with no real effort, no increase in your breathing, no need to pause, or if the weight is moving too quickly. Like if you could just keep going all day at this kind of speed, we can probably challenge you a little bit more. Now on the flip side of that, your weight is too heavy if your form breaks down, if the movement is really jerky or you need to use momentum to swing the weights around, or if you feel any strain in your actual joints rather than the muscles themselves. But we know your weight is just right if you can keep a controlled tempo. So a couple of seconds up and down per rep. If the last 2 or 3 reps feel genuinely challenging, so like you do need to stop and have a break, if you know that you need to focus on your breathing, you've maybe got a slight muscle tremble going on, or you get to the end and you can do 1 or 2 more, but definitely not 5 more. If you're to score out of 10 on an effort level, we want you to be at about a level 7 or 8 of 10. That's when we know that it is challenging enough to create a change in your muscle mass, your bone density, your strength levels, but not so challenging that it's going to ruin your technique or break down your form. So in practice, if you're a total beginner, that's going to look like, as a starting point, finding the weight that feels manageable for your target rep range. Now, realistically, if you're doing this first thing on your own, you're probably going to start too light. If in doubt, go too light. And if you can do that full set with good technique, but you know that you can be challenged more, great. We're going to go up gradually and just find the right weight. That is step 1. From that point onwards, at the end of every single set, we're just going to stop and think about how did it feel. Give it a score out of 10. Think about those last 2 or 3 reps. Were they still nice and controlled? Great. We want them to be a nice, controlled, good tempo. But were they too easy? Okay, you can probably push it. Maybe take the reps down, but put the weight up. Likewise, if it felt like it was getting way too hard, you're getting a 9 or 10 out of 10 and you're struggling to breathe and you're trembling away, we're going to take it down, because what's the point of risking an injury? We just need to constantly be assessing those metrics all at once. And I know, again, that sounds complicated, but it's as simple as thinking in your head, I'd give that a 7 or 8 out of 10. Or honestly, that was only a 4. I can probably go a bit heavier. Over the years, I've watched far too many women find this far too complicated, get overwhelmed, and either stop themselves from challenging themselves at all, or worse, go too far the other way, take it too literally, try and increase on every single set, and injure themselves, hurt themselves, and be back at square one. And that is exactly why I've built my one-to-one coaching and my Strength Essentials program around these principles of making strength training as simple and straightforward as possible. I know this isn't going to be your number 1 priority, so we need to make sure that it's doable in real life. If you're juggling work and family, maybe you've got kids, maybe you've got parents that are getting older, maybe you're hoping to keep some semblance of a social life, and then this hormonal roller coaster of perimenopause comes along and makes your body feel like it's really, really struggling. The last thing we want to do is either waste time on workouts that aren't doing anything, or even worse than that, spend time doing workouts that make you feel worse, that exhaust you or give you aches and pains and more niggles to deal with. You need to find a way to consistently challenge your body in a way that is appropriate for you, for your current energy levels, your strength levels, any previous injuries you need to work around. That is how you build lasting strength and future-proof your body for the decades ahead. It shouldn't feel like guesswork, and it definitely shouldn't feel complicated. There is no reason why you shouldn't be able to walk into your next workout feeling confident in the weights that you are choosing, and to have that peace of mind that you know what you're doing is right for your body. Future-proofing your body shouldn't be confusing, it should be empowering. If you found this video helpful, give it a like, hit subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and down at the bottom in the description there are a bunch of free ways that you can get started with strength training that feels manageable and doable. There are some free workouts you can download, there's even a free trial of my Strength Essentials program, so there are loads of options there if you are ready to take that next step or you need a bit more guidance. Feel free to get in touch if you've got any questions, and I'll hopefully see you soon.